Jason, a lot of interesting things to talk about, and you've seen a lot change in the advisory space, I'm sure.
In 2009, we started Branning Wealth Management. That was coming at the very tail end of the great financial crisis. And, I'd seen the tech bubble in the early 2000s, that big run up in late 98, 99 when I got in the business. So it was extraordinarily trying. But for those that were able to stick around and wait it out, it turned out just fine. And I think that's, the value of hopefully an advisor is making sure that there's a plan in place.
In your firm itself, what sort of technology have you used? I'm talking more in terms of use cases, right? Where do you see most value?
Some of the AI systems, and we're testing all of them, they'll give you wrong answers. Coding is not understanding. And I think that is something that's deeply human that an advisor is going to be required to do. But wow, how much better can the advisor serve their clients if we engage the tools?
You have the modern retirement theory as well, which is, you have kind of come up with, and I'd love to kind of get into that.
Modern retirement theory is really a concept developed with an academic, Professor Ray Grubbs, and his wife. We kind of came to a liability matched protocol. The liabilities being, what's the expected expenses that we have for life? What are the possible contingencies that could occur? And how would you take your income streams and then also all of your assets and match those in a way that makes sense from a definitional standpoint?
Good morning, Jason. How are you doing?
Good morning, Vineet. I'm doing well. It's great to connect with you today.
Likewise. Happy Friday. And I also know it's the day before a long weekend. So I'm especially thankful you've taken time out for us. So really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show. How's anything planned for the long weekend? What's coming up for the next 3 days?
Yeah, we're off to a university football game on the weekend. I've got one of my grown kids is up at university, and so we're going to go up for a game and visit with him. So it should be good.
Good. Sounds like a lot of fun. But Jason, a lot of interesting things to talk about today, and I always like to start with where it all started in some ways, right? So, obviously you've been in the industry for 27 years now, I think. And you've seen a lot change in the advisory space, I'm sure. We'll talk about all of that, but, it'd be good to just learn a little bit about how did you get into, doing what you do today, and what's the journey been like?
Well, thanks for asking. It was a circuitous route here. So, I in school I was humanities major, so I anticipated doing something different with my life. I thought I might work at a university setting, and I took an internship at a wealth management company, and they thought, hey, Jason, you should think about doing this for your career. And I said, hey guys, I don't really know anything about financial services. I didn't study, economics. I had a couple classes, but it wasn't my major. And they said, hey, yeah, we'll train you. So I was able to stick around for a couple of years and really learn the business from the ground up. From client services to financial planning department, and then just being able to shadow advisors who have been in practice for, decades and see how they did things and listen and learn. And then pursue, the educational side of the business, which, was the series test. We did the series test at first, and then we would come in and do the certified financial planner program, and was able to, get all of those things knocked out. So I sort of grew up in the business before it was really a planning. The wealth management companies today are quite different than where I started, because the practice I had come into to learn this business there were really two channels that were primarily functioning back then, and that was the insurance or the brokerage side. And so what was interesting about the firm that I started in was, the two guys that sort of came together, one had an insurance background, that's where they started. The other had a brokerage background and a CPA training, and had been in, a large top 5 CPA firm. And so that kind of blend of where's the middle, because advice runs a continuum. And it's not just about insurance products or brokerage, portfolio services. It's really about where do all these things fit together for an individual family. So it was a great place to start because, it wasn't a pure one side or the other. It was this blend, a very initial iteration of that kind of blend, which we see more now today is kind of acceptable in wealth management.
Sure. No, I was, I think there's lots to kind of uncover there, but I think a few things, like many people I speak to, you somehow stumble into this space as you did. But I think once you did, I think you had a very organic path, right? In the sense that you got to see different sides of the business, which is great, right? Because you have a more holistic understanding. And I like I think the term you mentioned there, listen and learn. I think nothing better than that, especially in your early years, right? Are young advisors today the same, or do they listen as much in your experience?
Oh, absolutely. I think the young generation is hungry to learn. The young folks that we encounter who are in the field and industry, they're really hungry to learn and excited to help. I think there is an ethos of service. There's a service orientation in this generation that is super encouraging to see.
Right. And actually, to be fair, this whole profession really is about listening and learning, right? Because you're sitting down with someone and trying to understand what they're about and what you can do for them. And rather than jumping into solutions, you really need to sit down and keep your eyes and ears open. So
I was just going to say, the best advisor. At the end of the day, what we try to do is we really try to inhabit their thought processes to understand them. And so if you just jump straight to answers without really understanding the issues and the issues beneath the issues, sometimes they have to uncover, you miss things. And that can lead to a lot of incongruity with the advice that's given, frankly, and expectations being unmet down the road because, so yeah.
And it's interesting because I know we'll get into this a bit later on. I'm just kind of throwing it into the AI note takers. It's a big thing today, right, in this space. And one of the interesting functionalities that note takers have is they can also tell you who spoke how much of the time to kind of help you after the conversation. Did you speak more or did the client speak more? And I'm sure that's probably helpful feedback for some folks. Right, but lots very interesting. I like the history lesson as well. Insurance brokerage and today how it's all kind of there's multiple things, right? I think you want to be the center point that a client comes to for all their financial needs, and then you will find the expert that they need. So that was like kind of your journey into financial advisory, and then obviously you founded Branning Wealth Management. When did that happen, and how long has it been with your own firm? How has that journey been? If you could talk to that a little bit.
Sure. So in 2009, we started Branning Wealth Management. That was coming at the very tail end of the great financial crisis, and it was a very trying time, for global markets and in the U.S. It was just a tough moment. I'd seen the tech bubble disintegration in the early 2000s, that big run up in late 98, 99 when I got in the business. And wow, it was just a very destructive thing, for portfolios. And the folks that were able to ride through it and they had the wherewithal, frankly, and they had a plan that they expected some downturns. Certainly the magnitude, that was the worst market since, 1931. That we'd seen. So it was extraordinarily trying, but for those that were able to stick around and wait it out, it turned out just fine. And I think that's, the value of hopefully an advisor is making sure that there's a plan in place. Number one, the client understands, embraces that plan, buys into it. And we like to call it doing a pre-mortem on bad markets or bad life conditions to see, how would that have turned out? It's not, there's always new experiences that are going to occur, both in the market and in life. And you can't, it never lays out like it does in a plan in this linear fashion. but to run those stresses and to talk about those stresses with folks, it's just super valuable, and I think helps when the moment does occur, this bad moment, you feel somewhat ready for it, and even though the emotions are there, you can never take away the emotions. The actions that are not informed only by the emotion. It's informed by something that's the third party, which is the plan. And I think that's a super important thing, laying out a blueprint. But so 2009, Branning Wealth Management started, and I'd worked for the firm that I started in, and that firm had grown, and they had sold to a business that was in our region, and that business, frankly, just collapsed. Three of the owners of that regional brokerage entity had malfeasance. They've done malfeasance against clients, and so that business got shut down, and so there was a period of limbo where we just had to wait. All these, not just me and the team locally. I mean, these were people across the country had to wait for the adjudication process to occur. Over a few months there for a receiver to take over and for the receiver to transfer our credentials and that sort of thing. So I just, started Branning Wealth Management, coming out of that negative experience, because at the end of the day, what it was about for us was serving our clients directly, and we had fantastic relationships with folks, and we were able just to kind of turn, and get going under a new entity structure. At the time, even though we were working both in the context of the firm I started in and in even this larger regional context, we had a back office relationship with a company in Portland, Oregon as a TAMP. And that TAMP relationship was really a fantastic bridge because we worked with them in both context, and our client funds were secured by a custodian. Actually, Fidelity was the custodian at the time. And so it was really not a difficult paperwork hurdle to get going again.
Right. And it's been 15 years, and obviously it's been a great journey. So congratulations on that. Actually, I like the fact, you were talking about the financial crisis and how you do a pre-mortem, right? And now I can see why you have gotten into your own philosophy and of financial advice, and I'd love to get into that a little bit. I know Branning Wealth Management follows the match process, and you have the modern retirement theory as well, which is you have kind of come up with, and I'd love to kind of get into that, explain that, please, to us, and tell us a little bit more about how you are kind of differentiated in the way you kind of approach advice.
Yeah, thanks, Vineet. That's a great question. Absolutely. We are a lot of times in our journey. It's informed by what happens to us and how we choose to think about things, and certainly have to be careful about biases that it can create, because those could be negative, frankly. But in our situation, going through the tech bubble and then the '08 scenario. Modern retirement theory is really a concept developed with an academic, Professor Ray Grubbs, who was a dear friend, and his wife. And, one day Ray and I were just talking. This is before, the 2008. This is in about 2006 and 2007. And they were just sharing some ideas around long-term care planning. And we were talking through the options, insurance or whatever the options were. Let's set aside some reserves if that eventuality occurred, et cetera. And it was just a very, very interesting conversation because, we had other clients ask the same type of question. And what's curious about it is, in one example, we had a client who one spouse could get coverage for insurance, another could not because of a condition that presented that they couldn't get coverage. So so then how do you think about this contingency in light of not being able to mitigate it in a traditional way? And so that's sort of what launched, the ideas of modern retirement theory. So Ray and I just begin to meet on a regular basis and talk through, all right, well, I mean, how do you solve this situation? And really, we kind of came to a liability matched protocol. So the liabilities being, what's the expected expenses that we have for life? What are the possible contingencies that could occur? And so how would you take your income streams and then also all of your assets and match those in a way that first of all makes sense from a definitional standpoint? So for example, we get into the idea of a base fund, and we ask for clients to make a differentiation between base or essential expenses versus discretionary. And I know, there's a lot of debate around that topic, but we really want to make that distinction because we would love to see that the essential expenses, these are the things that are like, food and transportation that we need, insurance that we have to pay for, shelter, basic things like that. We want to see that those are matched up with income sources that are like kind. So if these are inflation adjusting expenses and we're going to face them every month here forward until, our time on this planet ends, we want to match those up with an income source that is also similarly positioned. And so Social Security, for example, is a great benchmark type of resource for those expenses because it's inflation adjusted. It's a lifetime, you can't outlive it. And so how do you structure your portfolio in such a way that you can match these types of things up? So you fill up your base fund, you get that essential covered at a ratio that's acceptable. And then with contingencies, you want to solve that as well and think through, well, how am I using my asset array to mitigate potential expenses, and that's where you might look at things like home equity conversion mortgage, for example, a long-term care policy or an asset-based insurance option. And for the record, we're not insurance salespeople. We don't have an insurance license. We do fee-only, non-commissionable work, but we think insurance can have a place, for sure in solving this, the problems. Or do you just have cash set aside? All these options are discussed, and the beauty of the modern retirement theory is, we're product agnostic. We just want for all of those considerations to be made in a logical way, and you solve that base fund first, then the contingency, because really you're solving for two things. The two big risks in our view of retirement can be summarized in longevity risk and then conditions within longevity. No one knows what their conditions of health, what their conditions of market are going to be. So you have to have, some thinking around mitigation strategies or alternative scenarios. And then discretionary, those are just things that we want to do in life. They're goals, but they may be delayable. If the market's down, we may buy our car next year, not this year, for example. And then the legacy goals. So the four tier is the base fund, the contingency fund, the discretionary, and the legacy. And the legacy is not just about money. It's about the values that you're trying to communicate down unto the next generation. And so it's conversations, it's documents, it's more than just money. What values are being transmitted?
Understood. I think it's that layered kind of definition really brings it out, and I think primarily it's a safety first approach. There should never be a situation where what you always need has to be met in some ways, no matter what how circumstances change, the market changes. So, love the fact that it started with a discussion with a friend, and then it became a theory which has obviously been validated over the years now with your several clients.
We've been very blessed, that we've been blessed to see that it's shown up in curricula for retirement planning curricula,
Oh wow,
RICP,
okay.
RMA, and that's been fantastic to see that others have appreciated that work that Ray and I have offered. We do want for as many people as find it valuable to use, and that's what it's for. Again, anybody can use it because it's not beholding to just one side of the proverbial house, insurance or portfolio. You can find a slot for any of it. Like with the base fund, I'll give you an example. And I mentioned Social Security, sort of a benchmark type of asset. Well, we have this idea of 3S income, which is stable, secure, and sustainable income. And you can derive that by looking through a social contract lens. That's like the Social Security. You have a social contract with the government says it's going to pay, et cetera. Or you could look at a historical market perspective and say, the great work of Bill Bangand, who says that there's a withdrawal rate that's somewhere around 4.3%. I know he's updating all that here recently. But if you want to build a portfolio, you might use a safe withdrawal rate strategy in order to solve that problem from a portfolio standpoint. Or if you're an insurance person, maybe you would annuitize some of your funds in order to create that floor. So there are lots of, or you may use a combination of all those things. And it really is very client specific as to how they also want to address it. They have the right to, have an input, have input.
There are options for them as well. Got it. Incredible. It's part of the curriculum. So there you go. Legacy layer is sorted out for you, Jason. Great stuff there. Coming back to Branning Wealth, I think one thing that stood out when we spoke last time is you said you have clients all the way from Hawaii to Canada, and you've always been a remote first organization. Is that pre-COVID as well, pre-Zoom, and have you always been remote? That's incredible. So how did you manage that? Yeah. How did you manage that before it became a habit?
Let's go back to the company I started with. In 1998, 99, that firm, one of the principals was moving out west back to Colorado. They had lived in Colorado part of their life and had gone to university out there. And so they were moving there. And so the firm at that time took all of our paper files. And I mean, we had this massive repository of documents, and they were just housed, in secure files systems there in the office. Well, if you're going to go set up shop halfway across the country from our location, which happens to be in Jackson, Mississippi, you've got to do it differently. So we had all of those documents scanned into an electronic filing system back then in a secure protocol. And, so in a lot of ways, we had the benefit of coming into the industry at a time where we were early adopters to some of those technologies. And so we're digital natives in a way. So I don't like paper anywhere on my desk or around my desk. I want to make my notes and then I want to shred it because we don't do that. It's just there's too many safety concerns. But so when COVID hit, 40% of our clients are not in Mississippi. We meet with remotely in a venue similar to this. And referrals are our primary, the way we get clients, people who already work with us get referred in, or they see something about modern retirement theory or whatever. And, we have opportunity to serve. But so before COVID, we were using tools like Loom and Zoom and all these types of remote connecting where we have this interface and dialogue rather than just the phone. I mean, we did a lot of phone calls and such back then as well. But we didn't really feel that much of a difference, frankly, other than we could no longer have clients in office. We were already doing it. So I think it made the location independent advisor idea, it just brought it, into this moment. And now everybody realized, oh yeah, you can do that. It doesn't matter where you are.
The world changed. The world changed after COVID. Now, when you look back, you'd be like, you can't even think of a time when you weren't doing this. Like you and I doing this podcast right now virtually. It's as good as sitting in the same room. So tell me, Jason, clearly you guys are ahead of the curve. So what's coming in the next 5-10 years? Clearly you know something that other people don't. But but joking aside, Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sorry, please go ahead.
We certainly don't like to make predictions. I mean, you'd better you're ahead of the curve. You understand the technology side, Vineet, so much better than we, and which is why I'm so glad to connect with you and learn what you're thinking about and building. So, I'm excited for your work and how it's going to have an impact on our industry. I can see enormous value, to advisors in tools that are on the horizon, and yours included. I mean, right now we're already seeing fantastic. I think we can do a lot more at scale. Some of the AI systems, and we're testing all of them. They'll give you wrong answers many times. And so to have a domain expert who's around that says, well, that's actually not right. Try again, and you have to go continue to iterate. But I do see that we will be able to do more. We will hopefully, we're praying that we will, and we're looking for ways to add more value to clients so they will get more for the dollars they're spending. And we would like to do that at a better scale, than we have been able to in the past. This is a very personal business. And so there is a limit to the number of relationships that if you're trying to go in depth and have a plan, and a plan that's built upon an understanding of the people that you're working and serving, because that layer that's a human dimension that is impossible, I think, to replace, which is understanding. The machines do things that can be coded. Coding is not understanding. And I think that is something that's deeply human that an advisor is going to be required to do. But wow, how much better can the advisor serve their clients if we engage the tools and we maximize the tools on behalf of our clients? So, I just see more scale. I see more value being delivered. I see more personalization and customization possibilities. I'll stop there. But
No, but that's very interesting, right? Because I think, I guess what I read from what you just said is obviously it will help, firms like yours and others operate more efficiently, but it also makes the quality of the work that you do with your clients better because you're able to give them more and more often and go deeper. To your point, being more personalized, which perhaps is just not possible, prior to this round of technology coming out. But the other piece, I think, in some ways that you touched upon, many people speak about, is also something like financial advisory and plans. It should be available to more people, right? So the whole democratizing of advisory, again, with scale that comes with technology, is definitely going to be a boon as well. Where in some, like in your firm itself, what sort of technology have you used? I'm talking more in terms of use cases, right? Where do you see most value when you think about efficiencies and scale? Are there particular areas that you're most excited about, or have you just kind of kept an open mind and looked at what's out in the market?
Yeah, that's we always try to keep an open mind to see what's out there, and always willing to look at different things. Wow, that takes a lot of time, but if you find that one next right fit for you and your clients, wow, the benefit that it is will be recaptured in the time spent searching or listening. We have used, I guess a couple of years ago, maybe 5 years ago or so, we engaged a consultant out of Phoenix that helped us stitch together some workflows, which do some automations within the architecture of our filing system, but our intake process and our CRM. And so that integration has created some time saving for us, and then having workflows within the CRM as well. But one of the new innovations that has also been fantastic is a tool that we're using during our meetings, which is helping us take notes. And we always, right after a meeting, we will go and reread those notes to make sure it captured what we understood, what the meeting actually was. And then the technology is going straight to our CRM and populating activities for us coming out of that meeting as action points. And so that is a huge time saver, and it can assign it to where it needs to go. And that's a great thing. And then we're able to turn around our communication because we try within 24 hours of a meeting to publish those meeting notes to the clients because we want them to review that to make sure that we heard what they were saying properly. And let's edit it and fix it now if not. So those are some of the ways that, it used to take a lot longer to the follow-up cycle and
I think
making sure you get all
something like this. Something like this, it'll be very hard to go back on, right? Like once you're used to it, it's just unbelievable how much efficiency it brings in. And I think we spoke about it previously. It's not just the efficiency; it's the accuracy that the comprehensiveness of some of the data capture. Incredible, Jason. One thing I also wanted to ask you was about your firm. I also noticed that you also have a sub segment or a niche where you focus on athletes. In your business, right? How did that come about? And I found that very intriguing, actually.
Well, the man to speak to about that would be one of my colleagues, partners, Kelly Jennings. So Kelly is a very unique individual in that when he was at University of Miami, he played football there and was a great athlete, but also a fantastic student who majored in finance. And so Kelly, after he got the first round draft pick, to the NFL, went to the Seattle Seahawks and played out there for about 5 years, had a great career, then went over to Cincinnati for a year and decided that, hey, I think it's time for me to leave the league and to do something different. And he took he decided he wanted to do marriage and family therapy degree. So he came down to a seminary located in our area in Jackson, Mississippi. And I met him and we were just talking one day and he said, so Branning, what am I going to do with finance and marriage and family therapy degree? I don't know. And I said, Kelly, I'm not telling you it's the absolute answer, but financial planning and personal financial planning with management certainly could be a good fit. And if you want to talk about it and kick tires, let's do that. So we did. And so now all these years later, Kelly advises, professional athletes, and having been one, he really understands the needs, of what has to be done, because a lot of times folks think, I'm going to have this $20 million contract and I've got all the money in the world. It can never go bad. But you look at some of the stats and wow.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I think the big thing there is that a lot of this money comes in one go and very early in your career, right?
That's right.
When you're probably not the best informed or probably not informed by the right people either.
That's right.
But I just noticed a trend there, Jason. It looks like when you sit down with people and ideas just emerge, like the modern retirement theory first, and now with Kelly. Maybe I need to come and sit down with you sometime. And
we'd love that. We'd love that.
Magic.
It's organic, like you said. It's just there's a relationship. It's the sharing and the give and take, and if that it produces something. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it does. Many times it does, and it can be magic, as you said.
Yep. Yeah. No. Fully agreed. It's been a lot of fun, Jason. I don't want to keep you away from the long weekend. I will end the podcast on a lighter, simpler question. What keeps you happy outside work? Is there something that you're passionate about, a hobby, anything you'd like to talk about?
Well, when I have 4 children, and my wife and I, and I've had the privilege of being married almost 28 years, which is unbelievable. And so we have been blessed in this life with 4 amazing kids, and a lot of our time just goes to being with them. Work is something I thoroughly enjoy and feel like it's a calling for me. But the family time, and I like to read books. I used to be a runner. I'm getting to be more of a walker and podcast listener. So those are some of the things that I occupy my time, reading and just time with the family.
Well, you're a podcast speaker as well now. I'm sure you've done more. No, great stuff, Jason. Thank you so much for sharing, being so transparent, and really enjoyed the conversation. A lot of interesting nuggets in there for our listeners as well. And wish you a enjoyable long weekend together with your family. And I'm sure we'll speak again soon. Thank you.
Vineet, it's been such a joy. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this. Have a great weekend.